Hello, everyone. Today I wanted to talk about a subject that's been on my mind lately, and it's a reflection of a situation I knew about when I worked in a corporate job. The topic is authenticity versus opportunistic. I think it's a very important topic to talk about because I think some people don't know how to tell the difference. So I wanted to go over some warning signs, clues, and how to look out for somebody who's just being an opportunist versus somebody who's really being genuine. When I worked in my corporate job, I had a lot of coworkers, obviously. I worked for a huge company. But there were these two individuals that were so similar, yet completely different. So I wanted to touch on them in particular. I'm not going to say their name or, talk badly about anybody. I'm just going to talk about what they did and what their actions spoke to. I'm going to call them coworker 1 and coworker 2. Coworker 1 was an employee that had been with the company over 20 years, and he was a top employee. Through hard work, through long hours, through loyalty and dedication, he built a network of clients. He built a network of clients without using any social media, without using LinkedIn, without using YouTube, without using any of the other social media out there, even Facebook. It was word of mouth, and he really showcased his talents and skills, and he kept building his network. He ultimately became the top employee, where he was nominated top employee about 6 years in a row. Coworker 2 was newer to the company. She did not have the longevity of coworker 1. And she also had a fuzzy background. No one really knew where she came from. Nobody really knew what her past employment history looked like except her direct supervisor who interviewed her for the job. Also, coworker 1, on the other hand, came from a business background. He actually had a degree in business. Coworker 2 did not have a degree, and that didn't matter. She could still do the job. It was okay to not have a degree in this field. However, she had a criminal past. And hey, listen, I worked in a car dealership. My coworkers were felons. And let me tell you, they were some of the best guys I've ever worked with in my life. So to me, having a criminal background and going to jail and paying your time, that's one thing. If she was an active criminal, that's a different story. I do believe in second chances. So having said that, she did have a criminal background, but it wasn't anything like theft at her job or anything bad that would reflect on her present abilities or job duties or anything like that. So they hired her. And coworker 2 was a slow learner. Coworker 1 was a natural. He was a born leader. He had impeccable people skills. Coworker 2, however, received complaints daily from her clients. And when I worked in this office setting, I did not work with coworker 2 ever, but I used to get complaints about her. People would call me to complain about her. So I saw this firsthand. And again, I'm not trying to speak to her character, except that I want to lay forth her behavior, because I'm trying to distinguish between authenticity and opportunistic. And I kind of have to go back and dredge that up in order to clarify the difference. Coworker 1, it's like enough said. He's your top guy. He's your top employee. He has a customer list 10 miles long. Coworker 2 has no client list. She was put in an office with other people, and they all shared the customer base there, unlike coworker 1, who had his own customer base. This would be like if you're a car salesman the longer you're there, the more clientele you build up over time. Because why? People don't buy cars typically all the time. You see, that's a far and few in between type of purchase. They'll be coming in maybe once a year, maybe every 5 years, maybe every 10 years, but they remember their salesperson. And as an example, when I worked at the car dealership, there was a guy there that had been there for over 20 years, maybe even 30 years. And all the customers that walked through that door were there to see him because he had sold them their past cars. They would come back to buy their children's cars with him. And that's a thing at car dealerships. The more you're there, the more you build up your clientele base. And it was the same here where I worked. And coworker 1 had that down pat. He had clients that kept coming back year after year after year working with him. And coworker 2, of course, wasn't established. She had no clients. She just shared a pool of clients that would walk into her office where other people worked as well. So it was up for grabs. Nobody there was established like coworker 1. I noticed when I worked there, my job was to do reports and analytical data, things like that. Very boring. But I would get calls from her. And she would tell me that she didn't want me working on this or that because she wanted to do it, because the client went there. And I didn't pick up on it. So I was okay with it. I didn't care. But we were graded, so to speak, the health of our offices or the health of the work was graded by upper management in what we did. So if I didn't do something that I was supposed to do, but she did it, it went on her health grade and it accounted for her manager's bonus. So her manager would get a bonus on work she did, taking it away from me. I didn't know all this then because I wasn't in the nitty gritty of the everyday operations of the business and all that. I just sat there and did my job. So I didn't realize that then. And after a while, I started getting phone calls for her, asking if she was there and so forth. I didn't put it together. Until one day, a woman came in. I don't recall her name, but she had a stack of paperwork. And she asked for coworker 2. And I said, I don't know why you're coming in here. She doesn't work here. Well, come to find out, and this is exactly why I'm saying her behavior was opportunistic. Come to find out, somebody else, totally somebody else, somebody totally different, didn't work with her, didn't work in her office, had actually done the paperwork. But coworker 2 called this client and told them to come in and see her. And where she got caught was the client came to my location by accident. And that's how I found out. The problem is, it wasn't like, it wouldn't have been a big deal, right? I didn't really care. It would not have been a big deal, except we had a meeting. The meeting one time was far away. We had to go travel across states away for this thing. Big show, big corporate show. It was ridiculous. I couldn't stand any moment of it. Not that I'm ungrateful to have had the job. I just, yuck. That's why I left the job. I just can't. Corporate life is not for me. And the top district person in management stood up and raved about this coworker 2. Just raved about her. Talking about her. She's a nice person. She's the up and coming best employee. Went on and on and on. Raved about this person. I didn't care. Good for her. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wasn't jealous. That's not it at all. I wasn't even in her league. Oh, trust me when I say that. I was like an assistant. So there was no competition there. So it wasn't that I was jealous or bitter or anything like that. That's not the case. The issue was how she got there, and it wasn't through authenticity. She was double-handed. And nothing she did and nothing she's ever done and nothing she has done since has been genuine or authentic. Meanwhile, the coworker number one that has strived to build up his success, build up his career, and so forth, the company is no longer looking at that as the best in the business. They're now looking at her. And the problem with that is it's not authentic. You can't build on vulturistic ideas. In other words, if all you're picking at are somebody else's leftovers, or all you're picking at is somebody else's hard work, you're not actually building a solid base of your own. You're just kind of like stealing from other people, stealing their thoughts, ideas, work. You're not doing it on your own. So you're not building a stable foundation. Coworker number one, just like the employee at the car dealership as well, that guy, they built up their client base through hard work, loyalty, dedication, knowledge, people skills. Coworker number two doesn't have any of that. She's not loyal to the company. She gets complaints about her all the time. She takes from others without doing anything of her own. And you have to wonder why a large company, the size of company I worked for in corporate America, why they would praise effortless manufactured work. It wasn't hers. I don't know why a company would be proud of that. And I think that's why, in my opinion, of course, this is all just my opinion, why a company would take that at face value instead of sticking to what works. Because at the end of the day, if everybody turned out to be like that, it would be like a food fight in a cafeteria. If everybody was stealing from each other's work, then there's no foundational work. It's just a big splatter of mess. Personally, I'm grateful for the opportunity I had in corporate America, but I'm also grateful I'm no longer there. It ruined my health, and I'm back on track. I'm getting better, and I can't ever look back. It's going forward from here on out. I can never look back at that and say, I strive to be like coworker number two, who just steals her way through her job. In my opinion, of course. I don't want the takeaway of this to be coworker two is a terrible person, because I don't mean that. That's not what I'm trying to say here. I think because of the company environment and because of her actions, she thinks she's doing good. And that's the problem. They're praising her effort. They're praising her thievery. They're praising her opportunistic snatch and grab somebody else's work. When we were in school, we were all taught plagiarism. If you steal somebody else's work, it's plagiarism, right? But now, in this corporate job, it's applauded. It just makes me wonder, what's the future of corporate jobs if that's where it's headed? Thanks for watching today. Take care.